Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Irish Mike's Farm Table Podcast. You can find the podcast on all the major platforms, including Apple, Spotify, Google, and Amazon. We hope you will subscribe and rate us as you enjoy the content that we work so hard to deliver. As with all episodes, this one is brought to you by Lake Joy Farmstead, our little farm northeast of Seattle, near Lake Joy in Carnation. Lake Joy Farmstead is the home of our Black Clover Cattle Company grass-fed beef, pastured pork, and poultry program, our line of barbecue rubs and bitters, as well as our farm-roasted coffee. You can find out more information about our upcoming classes, events, and so much more at lakejoyfarmstead.com. Well, Anne Marie Stickney, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So glad for you to be a part of our Farm Table podcast here at Lake Joy Farmstead. We talk about to a lot of people. We just had the director of agricultural programming at Carnation Farms. That was a fun conversation about the work that they're doing down there. We've got cattle folks and sheep folks and a whole bunch of others in the past and going forward. And so I'm super excited to have you on here specifically to talk about dairy cows and husbandry and some of the what it takes to raise that herd and the milk production and all that kind of stuff. So thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Well, tell me a little story or a little bit of your background about kind of where you're from, where you grew up, and kind of what got you into dairy farming.
Sure. So I actually just grew up down the road in Monroe, Washington. I still live there now. I moved away for a bit, but came back. And when I was about 3 years old, my older sister said the words that every father fears, which is, "Daddy, I want to learn to ride." So she started riding, got really into it. And because my dad is an all or nothing kind of guy, he decided that we needed to move to the country and get her a horse. So we did that. And as everybody who has ever bought chickens or anything like that knows, there's farm math that happens. Yeah. And we ended up raising... There's some debate about whether they were Holstein calves or they were Holstein Angus calves. But at some point, my dad decided that each of his daughters needed to bottle feed a baby calf. So that was my very first experience with cows when I was probably 4 or 5, was bottle feeding a calf. But that was only 3 acres, and I would say about 2 acres of it was swamp. So we outgrew it pretty quickly, and we moved farther out into the country to the house that I grew up in until... I left for college, and it just so happened that our neighbors across the field have a hobby farm. Vicky was actually able to buy back the main plot of her dad's dairy farm that she grew up on. He had sold off the cows and moved away and sold the farm, and she was able, with her husband, to buy it back so that she could raise her boys there. And she had... Well, she still has a small herd of Guernseys. She found the very last cow of her dad's breeding and bought it and started her own herd with Old Guernsey. But she also raises beef cows, and we always called it the funny farm. There's always stuff going on there. She had peacocks for a while. She had llamas. But because she had boys that were about my age and they were just across the field, and I was always a kid that wanted to be outside doing stuff, I ended up going over there all the time, and she taught me how to milk cows when I was 9 years old. And I would do chores for them whenever they were on vacation, unless I went with them. Once she was going over vacation plans, and she was like, "And Anne Marie will take care of the animals." And I was like, "No, I won't. I'm going with you." And then that kind of scuppered her plans for a minute. She had to scramble. But she taught me how to milk cows. And of course, my sister had the horses. So of course, we all learned to ride, and then I learned to ride. And I ended up with horses. And when I went off to college, I knew that I wanted to do something with animals, but I was sure I did not want to be a dairy farmer. I had realized that meant milking cows twice a day, every single day. And I was like, nope, no, I don't think so. So I was planning to do something with either horses or beef cows because that was where most of my experience was. But it turned out that my academic advisor was also the advisor for a student group that Washington State University has called Cooperative University Dairy Students.
Is that where you went? Was WSU?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
So Dr. McNamara had a talent for figuring out what motivated people. That is his special gift. And he realized that continual pestering was what would motivate me. So he just picked and picked and picked every time he saw me until finally I was like, fine, I'll go to a CUDS meeting. So I went, and it takes 12 to 15 students at all times to run their herd, because obviously you have to work around everybody's class schedules. So you need quite a few people to keep everything going. So with people graduating all the time, they are always on the search for new members, and they interviewed me on the spot and dragged me out to the farm, and I loved it, and I never left.
They have a cool agricultural program still at WSU. I always thought that those days were long gone, but I'd been back there a couple of times. I've actually bought beef from them to raise. And it was just a really impressive facility, and talking to the students. In fact, the guy that was running the beef program, he looked right out of a Hollywood set. I can't remember his name. I want to say it was Clint. And cool mustache, wore a tight vest. He just looked like he was trying to be Clark Gable from the old days. And yet he was running their beef program, and he knew more. He probably has forgotten more about beef than most people know.
Yeah.
And he runs a really great program over there. But you were in the dairy side of it.
Yeah. WSU doesn't have a dairy science program. They have an animal science program, and you can choose to take classes in various subjects. So I took the dairy science focused classes. We also had some classes in cooperation with University of Idaho, just across the state line in Boise. And we also kind of had a system worked out where some of the upper level classes had so few students that they were in danger of not being taught. So we would go take maybe some beef classes if our classmates thought they weren't going to get to take a beef management class, and then they'd come take a dairy class so that we could all get what we wanted to do.
That's cool. Any of your work part of making the ice cream at Ferdinand's Ice Cream Parlor by chance?
No, I did not get to go work at Ferdinand's. I love cows. I don't so much love making cheese. I honestly think it's pretty boring, and I'm really glad that we have somebody else to do that on our farm.
We'll get into that. That's awesome. Always on the way out, we always have to hit up the ice cream parlor. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, we did sell all of our milk went to Ferdinand's.
Oh, yeah. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, and actually the herd at WSU, CUDS has their own herd specifically within the larger herd that they own and manage. But they're Holstein cows, but they have been breeding them specifically for cheese and ice cream for so long, and selecting for components, protein and fat, for so long that they have a significantly higher average component yield in their milk than the normal Holstein.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. So the Cougar Gold ice cream is one of the byproducts, right? From that high fat, high protein.
Yeah.
And I went to the UW, so I have a hard time, getting excited about WSU, except in their agricultural program. It's pretty impressive.
It would have been hard to milk cows like
in
I
Seattle?
did in Seattle. I don't think the neighbors would have appreciated it. And I know that they would not have appreciated the swine center.
That's hilarious. Yeah. The guest I had this past week is a forestry consultant, and he went to the University of Washington because they still have a strong forestry program.
Yeah.
So just the opposite, right? We got kind of specialized in certain things at the two big state schools anyway. Well, okay. So that's awesome. Your schoolwork at WSU, you decided this might be what I want to be when I grow up, is work with dairy cows in particular. So take us into how you got connected to Cherry Valley Dairy and a little bit of that history of that particular farm, if you can, and how your involvement came to be.
Sure. I took a little detour after college and actually worked in a fine jewelry store for a while, and then moved back home. And I was looking for jobs, and I was assuming I would probably end up moving up north towards Mount Vernon, because there's more large dairy farms up there.
Sure. Skagit County is fantastic.
Yeah. A mutual acquaintance of mine and Vicky's, whose name is also Anne Marie, as it happens, was doing the nutrition management planning for Cherry Valley Dairy. And she happened to know that the kind of interim manager was in over his head and looking for somebody to replace him. And she said, I happen to know somebody who just moved back home who's looking for a job, and this would be a good fit for her. So she really got me that job.
That's cool. So tell us about the history of the dairy itself, because that particular farm was something else, right? Another family, something like that.
So the original family would be the Coys, and they still live in the area. Actually, there was two pieces of the original farm that Ruth sold to her children before it could be subdivided anymore. So I have a neighbor on each side that are children of the original owners.
Okay.
So it was originally a dairy farm with, I mean, I wasn't really into dairy cows then, so I don't know personally, but I think pretty nice show quality Holsteins. And from everything I can hear, very well run. And then Ruth decided to sell it, and I sold it to somebody who ran it as a dairy farm for a while. And then at some point there were no cows there. There was maybe beef cows, I think. There's a little bit confusion over that part. But eventually our current owner, Gretchen Garth, bought it. And she bought a small herd of Jerseys and started working on turning half of one of the old sheds into a creamery, which is where we're making cheese now.
Oh, that's awesome. So in the history of that particular farm, first of all, for those that are listening, Cherry Valley Dairy overlooks Cherry Valley on the north side of Duval as you head out Highway 203 towards Monroe. And it is probably once was a very, very large farm, and it sounds like it's been split up just a little bit, but still pretty good size. There are a lot of
we have
pastures and so forth there.
80 acres.
80 acres, okay. Big, beautiful yellow barn, kind of the classic when you drive by it. And again, it overlooks the Cherry Valley as you face north towards Monroe and all of that. But let me ask you, on part of the history, was that dairy in its heyday contributing to the sort of the dairy reputation of the Carnation Duval area? Because it was a pretty large dairy.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So we had for a long time an employee that worked there who had also worked for Eric, who bought the farm after Ruth sold it. And he said that Eric at one point had 300 Holsteins milking there.
Oh, wow.
That was milking cows, not total cows. We went through the barn one day and he showed me there was milk cows here and there was milk cows here and there was milk cows there. Like just the whole barn that I now have 50 cows in total, where I have one little pen of milking cows and the rest is heifers, is the whole thing. Milk
was
cows.
in full production.
Yeah.
And what was the milk used for?
I think it was sold as fluid milk.
Oh, okay. So maybe Dairy Gold or some of these other
Probably
bigger
Dairy
companies
Gold,
that still have a little bit of a connection here to the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, Dairy Gold would be the most likely cooperative in our area.
Yeah, yeah. We have friends that live in the Snoqualmie Valley on the Snoqualmie River. They have kind of their property is sort of a peninsula, and we'd spend times in the summer when the kids were smaller, floating down part of it, just enjoying the sun and the river and all those things. And you'd always run into these pylons that are kind of sunk into the river. Mm-hmm. And I remember asking the owner, "Hey, what were these for?" And they had little docks on all of these little farms in this valley, in the valley below us. Where, the farmers would bring their milk in their containers, and they would, the little, and I can't picture it exactly, but let's say a barge comes floating down the river, and they would pull up to the next farm, and they would load their raw milk, and then it would continue going down to the next.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I imagine the Cherry Valley Dairy has some of that history too.
Probably. I mean, the river is really just directly across the road, so it's right there, accessible. There's actually an underpass under the road into the neighbor's field.
Oh, is that right?
The way that we don't use anymore, but they used to use it all the time
To get to the river.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so new ownership, and that was several years ago. And so Cherry Valley Dairy today, there are some specific products that are being made on, it sounds like one side of that property.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we have Jersey cows that have incredibly high butter fat and high protein, and we use all of our milk that I produce on the farm to make cheese and butter.
Awesome.
We do sell a little bit of fluid milk, but honestly, we make all of our money with cheese and butter.
Got it. And what kind of cheese? Tell us about that.
Our flagship cheese is a cheddar style. Blaine also makes fromage blanc, which is my personal flavor. I think it's really underrated, and people, I think, are maybe a little underwhelmed by what it looks like, but it's so good. You should try it. whey ricotta occasionally. You make bloomy rind cheese, which would be kind of like a brie, but we're not allowed to call it that.
Because we're not in France.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So we can do occasionally a bloomy rind cheese. He'll do occasionally a seasonal variety because our pastures flood. So the cows don't get to be out year round, but they are out in the summertime. So in the spring, he'll sometimes do special spring varieties when we get that first spring flush.
Oh, that's
changes
awesome.
the milk flavor profile. But yeah, our biggest seller is the butter. So we do gray salt butter, which has gray sea salt in it.
That's
It's
delicious.
It's cultured, so it has that nice kind of tang to it. And unsalted butter, and also occasionally coffee butter, which is amazing, and some other flavors every now and then.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, the butter we've had actually pretty much all those products that you're talking about. The butter's excellent. The cheddar is really good. They're all good. Again, the fromage blanc. I don't know that I've had the quote unquote brie style or camembert style, but Blaine's fantastic. We're going to have him on here too.
Yeah, for sure.
To have a chat about it. Well, tell a little bit more specifically about raising dairy cows. You mentioned you guys are Holstein. So you said, or did you say
Jerseys.
Jersey? Okay. Well, and those are the two primary dairy breeds in our country. Is that right?
Yeah, there's others, but on commercial farms, you're most likely going to see Holsteins, or if they're either just don't like Holsteins, or if more likely they're selling for non-fluid milk, you'll see Jerseys, occasionally Brown Swiss.
When you say non-fluid milk.
So we're not part of the commodities market because we're using all of our milk on farm. So we're insulated from that. But if you're selling milk on the commodities market, the highest price you're going to get is for fluid milk that gets bottled. And then the price goes down as the shelf life increases. So fluid milk has the shortest shelf life and the highest price that you'll get if that's what your milk is going to market for. If you're selling to a processor that's going to make yogurt or soft cheeses, then that's like the second tier pricing. And if it's going to hard cheeses, then that's the lowest pricing level.
Got it. Because there's a lot more processing when it comes to taking that raw product and then turning it into something else.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And so tell me, kind of go deeper dive on the difference between Holstein and Jersey besides the dramatic color difference.
And size difference.
But it sounds like I've always hear that the temperaments are different as well.
They are. So some very wise horse people will tell you that there's more difference between individuals in a breed than between separate breeds. And you should always take that to heart with any group of animals, right? But as a general group, Holsteins are just more laid back. They want to go to work and get on with life. They don't care about your mood in the morning when you go milk them. They just want you to feed them and milk them and clean their stall. That's all they want from life. They're chill.
Simple life.
Jerseys are not for everybody. I'll be honest. I love them, but they're very polarizing. There are people who love them and there are people who hate them. And for the people who hate them, I see you and I understand. They're very dramatic. All cows are curious, but Jerseys take it to another level. And because they're small, they tend to get themselves into predicaments. I have found myself kneeling on a heifer with a reciprocating saw upside down, cutting a board because she somehow managed to shimmy underneath the stall divider and get stuck so that she couldn't go either way. And the only way to get her out was to cut the board.
Yeah.
And I was like, how did you do this, honey? And she was like, I don't care. Just get me out.
just cut and then let me go. We actually just saw a video the other day of somebody that we kind of follow on social media that raises beef cattle because we have Angus cattle here at our farm. Similar idea, but in a metal panel.
Yeah.
And the horse, because it was stuck and trying to get out, its head swole just a little bit to make it even more difficult.
Yeah.
And because it was metal, the guy had to pull out his sawzall with a metal blade. I mean, right up against anyway. And that's all the cow you can tell. It's
they
like,
don't
just
give
let
you
me
very
out.
much room once they're stuck, right? It's that's why the saw was upside down, because I was trying to slide it underneath and then cut up to make sure I didn't accidentally cut her, and she was not happy about it.
I bet.
Nobody was happy that day.
So they're a little bit more temperament. I mean, Jerseys, they're beautiful looking cow. I mean, they're impressive to look at.
They are. They're some of the cutest.
Yeah, sure.
Adorable babies, and they can be very sweet, but also if you've ever dealt with Arabian horses, there's kind of the same thing. They're a little bit, I wouldn't say they're super smart, they're cows, but they are a little smarter than average, and they're sensitive in a way that a lot of other breeds of cows aren't. Like, they pick up on your emotions, and that can affect how they respond to you. So if they're acting up and I get after them, they will accept that and not hold it against me. But if I'm just in a bad mood and I'm grumpy, they will take it out on me for sure.
They're picking on you.
Yeah, if you're used to beef cows or Holsteins, that honestly, they don't care if you yell at them. That did not ruin their day. And you bring that attitude to a Jersey, they will kick you black and blue.
Really?
Yeah, they don't like it.
They don't do.
They're not putting
abuse.
up with that. No.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask was exactly that. I don't know how much beef cattle experience you have as well, but what would be just a couple of the differences in temperament or how you treat them besides, maybe the end use, right? Can you speak to that just a little bit?
I would say that my experience with beef cattle is that they can be just as friendly and cuddly as dairy cows get, but a lot of times they're not, because they're not raised and managed in the same situation, so they're not handled every day. My calves are hand raised. I feed them every day of their life. They're used to getting scratched and cuddled on, and we have lots of visitors, so they're used to seeing lots of people, and spending time with humans is not a stressor for them. It's something that they're used to and they kind of actually look for. So if you raise a beef cow in that situation, they're probably going to turn out the same way. But if you're raising them in a scenario where you're not handling them very often, then they're just going to be more wary. But for sure, I've met some really nasty Angus cows that would go after you if you gave them a chance. And I don't think that they would ever want to be friends. But every once in a while, you get a dairy cow like that too.
Well, and like beef cattle, especially if you're going to be on a smaller farm like we are, only really 6.5 acres primarily. I mean, we have to have the docility factor has to be score pretty high.
Yeah. Also, if you've ever been to a county fair, you'll notice that there's a lot of beef bulls in the beef barn, and they are chilling out. They are living their absolute best life. There are no dairy bulls. They got banned. And there's a reason for that. Dairy bulls are notoriously temperamental.
And they just won't, doesn't matter how you breed them or what you do, you just can't find one that's going to be chill.
You can, but do you want to take the chance?
Probably not at the Puyallup Fair, I don't.
So, yeah.
That makes sense. I never thought about that. I was always impressed when the big bulls were even there. Like, I don't even know how you guys did this, but if they're chill, right?
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of dairy bulls that are chill, but you have to be incredibly consistent in the way you handle them from the day they're born, and never let them get an attitude, and never mistreat them, and never do anything that would give them cause to go after you. And always remember that even if they're friendly, they could do you a lot of damage. Yeah,
that's the one thing about the confidence that you get around any of these bigger livestock animals is they really can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Most people, they can't, they're not going to, they're so sweet looking and all those things. It's like, these are 1,400 pound animals or whatever the size is, and they're athletes.
Yeah.
They can jump, they can do kind of whatever it is that they decide that they want to do. I joke with people, it's like, they're here only because we feed them. They don't have to be here. They like it enough, but it's mostly because we feed them.
Bust out.
Exactly. So same to the dairy cows, you're saying.
Yeah, I would say so, except
there's a lot more hand-holding, literally, right? Yeah. And human interaction, like you said, from day one.
Especially for my cows, because I don't have very many, so I have the time to go. Like, almost all of my cows are halter trained, because why not? But on a larger dairy, they don't have the time to do that with every single calf.
Got it.
And also because I have so many people on the farm all the time, they're used to a lot of different people.
Sure. So they don't get all worked up about it.
No.
The most common breeds in dairy, at least in the Northwest, are these Holsteins and Jersey. But is that nationwide? Is that true?
Yeah.
What are some of the other breeds that maybe we don't know about as much?
Sure. I think it's about 80% Holsteins in the U.S. and then almost 20% Jerseys.
Got it.
So the other breeds, we would call them, some people call them the color breeds, but more often they're called the protein breeds, which Jerseys are one of them. And they're just the breeds that have higher components than Holsteins. So brown Swiss would be one. Brown Swiss, they're called brown Swiss. They're actually gray. Don't ask me why they're called brown Swiss. But they're big
Are they
framed.
from Switzerland?
They are from Switzerland, at least. They're big framed, slow growing cows. Also have high protein and high fat.
Would their history be in making Gruyere and some of those traditional
they're
Swiss
an
cheeses?
Alpine breed.
Got it.
Also have Dutch Belted, Ayrshire, Milking Shorthorn. Who am I forgetting? Guernseys. Guernseys would be the yellow and white cows. They're kind of a medium-sized cow, kind of in between Holsteins and Jerseys in size.
Is that British or French history? The Guernsey.
The Guernsey Isles are closer to France, but they are British islands.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So maybe Brittany or one of those old. Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Way back
so
history.
Guernsey and Jersey are both the Channel Islands right next to each other. Is also Alderney, and there used to be Alderney cattle. They died out.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, but for the most part in our country, 80-20 or 80, 79-19 on one of these and the 2% mixed bag.
Yeah.
Gotcha when it comes to dairy. A couple of questions that my wife wanted me to ask you.
Sure.
Why did they stop using iodine on the teats along the way? I know that's a big jump.
We still use iodine.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so
But that's not happening with every dairy. Is that correct?
No, there's different options.
Okay.
There's never one precise right way to do things. The point is that you get your cow clean, right? So iodine is cheap. It kills a lot of things. It starts to dissolve dirt, so that's great. But you can also use glycerine-based teat dips. There's some more complicated ones that come in two parts that you have to mix right before you use them. When my sister was hand milking a cow at home, we just made our own udder. We washed her whole udder because we were hand milking. So when you're milking in a parlor, you don't need to wash their whole udder. You just need to clean their teats because that's all the machine is touching, right? But when you're milking into an open bucket, you have to wash the whole udder. So we made our own udder wash with cheap lemon-scented dish detergent and what else did it have in it? I can't remember at the moment, but it didn't have any iodine in it. But iodine is cheap and it dries without leaving a residue. So a lot of farms do still use it. They actually still use it at the Evergreen State Fair. And my friend was running the parlor for several years and he got so tired of people asking why the cows were bleeding that one year I called to ask him something and he was really busy. I was like, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm painting the parlor floor red."
That's so funny. Because they thought the iodine drips and stuff was blood.
Everybody thinks it's blood. It's just iodine. But yeah, glycerin-based teat dips are also popular.
Is it true? I think one of the reasons that she was asking that is that my wife asking the question about the iodine was for a long time how we got the benefits of iodine in our diet. Do you know anything about that? Whether it's through the liquid?
If you do a chemical analysis of milk and you see iodine in it, it's because they were using iodine-based teat dip. It's not actually found in the milk, which is kind of a little bit gross to think about, but
we can digest it as humans. Yeah. And it's supposed to be good for us. I guess we need some of it. Is that true? Is that why they put iodized table salt and those types of things?
Yeah, because it is a nutrient that's hard to get otherwise.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you for asking that one. That was one that I asked her. I said, "What would you want to ask Anne Marie?" A couple other, kind of quick, I don't know if they're going to be quick hitters, but we'll call them bullet point questions. I know that you're not a part of the cheese making side of it, but we were at Trader Joe's a year or two ago getting ready to go to a baseball game for my son, getting some snacks, and we looked at some of the cheese selection, and we noticed for the first time 3 different rennets in the cheese making.
Okay.
Now we can take this to Blaine as well if you want, but there's a vegetable rennet, there's an animal rennet, which is what I've used when I've made cheese at home, and then there's this other one. Can you speak to what's happening with the rennet world?
I don't know about the other one.
Okay, I think it's lab grown or something.
Yeah, we use vegetable rennet. The traditional way would be to use calf rennet,
Right.
which obviously is controversial. You have to kill a calf to get it.
Right. Because it's in the stomach lining?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about the third one. We're going to have to ask Blaine about that.
We're going to have to ask Blaine. Yeah, it's kind of a lab grown. And I remember there was some questions about it. And of course, the internet can take you down a lot of rabbit trails
Yeah.
as well.
I'm sure he is aware, though.
But it sounds like it's because it's cheaper to make and supposedly it's more humane, in quotes. We'll say that's what somebody said.
Getting it from plants?
Right? Same. Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
We're going to come back to that one. We'll get Blaine involved in that one. What would describe a typical day on the job for you at Cherry Valley Dairy? Starting from when you show up and you've had your coffee or tea or whatever it is that gets you going. Like, how are we taking care of these dairy animals? Because what I've learned, let me say it this way, the tee up, is that how you take care of these animals has a big impact on the finished product. Whether you're making, growing a beef cow and you want a cheeseburger at some point, or of course if you're doing dairy, if you're getting cheese and milk and butter and all these other things. So I imagine that the husbandry of taking care of these animals is second to none. So what would a day in the life of Anne Marie at the Cherry Valley Dairy look like?
Sure. So we have 2 shifts a day because the cows need to be milked twice a day. So I usually work in the mornings because I'm more of a morning person, and I would show up. I would immediately start sanitizing our parlor, and then while that's running, I go down and I check on the cows. So I give them a little snack and call them up. Basically, I just want to make sure that everybody gets up and looks healthy, because if I'm not expecting a problem, but if there is, I want to know before I come get them for milking. But so also,
they stand at attention knowing that you're coming to do roll call or what?
Usually, yes. Cows are, honestly, it's more important that you do everything consistently than that you do it one specific way. It's that you do it the same way than like you feed them one certain thing. So they're very used to my schedule. And when the time changes, I just roll with it because there's too much margin for error if I try to like grade them in an hour. So they're pretty mad twice a year when I'm either an hour early or an hour late. They're like, this is not right.
They know.
They're especially mad when I'm an hour late.
I bet. It's like our dog when it comes to, I think it's 5:00. He literally walks up to the window and just stares in. He knows
it's time. Yeah. Yeah. So they are generally, some of them are still lying down, but they're expecting me to come call them and give them a little bit of grain. So I get them all up. I want to make sure that everybody's up and ambulatory and looking healthy, but I also want them to poop and pee in the barn and not in my clean parlor. And that is also honestly the very first step of the milking process because, like I said, cows are creatures of habit. They like consistency, and getting your cows to milk out thoroughly, you need to have a consistent process. And at the very beginning of that process, they're going to start producing oxytocin, which causes milk letdown, which means that it's easier to get them milked out completely and quickly and send them back to do cow things. So I go get them out of bed. And then I go back and I finish sanitizing the parlor and I set it up to milk instead of clean. And then I go get them and then we milk. And then after milking, I would do all the chores. So get everybody fed, get pens cleaned. I usually I breed cows twice a year instead of trying to spread them out over the year. So I don't always have calves, but when I have calves, I would give them milk while I'm milking generally. So it's a little bit of a rush first thing in the morning. And then after that, take your time, get everybody fed.
Yeah, and it's farm chores.
Yeah. And then, feeding is the same every day, but everything else is different. Who knows what might happen?
One of the, in our kind of subculture, our family, this homesteady farmstead thing, it wasn't that long ago that we were all doing it, right? We all had a little piece of property and we had a couple of animals. In fact, the pigs that we raise here are the Gloucestershire Old Spots, which is a UK heritage breed. They call it the family pig. It's because it was docile and it was easy to be around kids. And it, you can almost by clockwork, you could have a 250-pound animal in 8 months.
Yeah.
Well, that produces a decent amount of protein for a family, right? And my point in that was in this culture of people that are trying to either raise these animals for their own food, or in some cases, like we do a little bit, we also sell to some friends and family, shares and so forth. There's let's see, how do I say it? Most of the people that we've met that are like-minded say that raising a dairy cow at their home is the best thing that they've done.
I would say
what would you say to that?
The ones that still have a cow will say that. The ones that have tried it and moved on to something else have a different opinion. I have sold a few cows as family cows. I did not sell your friend Nicole her cow. She found that somewhere else and then realized that she did not know how to milk a cow, and she had a heifer that was about to calve. So she found me, and I taught her how to milk. But I have sold a few family cows, and I would say that most people have done their due diligence before they go get a cow, and they are aware that it's going to be twice a day, every single day for a year. And then they'll maybe have 2 months off and then they'll have to do it again. Every once in a while they have it and they're a little shocked. It's certainly a culture shock getting a cow, because you are going to be planning your life around milking your cow. And my life revolves around milking time, and yours will too if you buy a family cow.
Well, and to your earlier point about they expect, consistency. Their milk's ready at the time that it's
and if you've asked any woman who's ever breastfed, she will tell you that they're not going to be happy if you make them wait.
Right, there you go. Good example. So there's a lot of byproduct to having a home, a home cow or a family cow, as you called it. I mean,
there's a lot of things to be thinking about.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of responsibility, certainly. There's some safety things. The YouTube makes it look like it's approachable with some of the folks on there, but
it is, but you should think about it.
Well, but the everybody that has it, to your point, they say, well, look, these are all the things that you get out of it, right? Let's walk through it. You get milk that you can drink. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you can still make butter with that milk, because that's what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Real quick, how's butter made again?
If you were doing it at home, the easiest way would be to milk your cow, do whatever you decide to do after you've milked, put it in the fridge, and then in the morning skim the cream off the top.
And then you beat it.
And then you beat
put it in your mixer, whatever.
Whatever way you decide to make butter at home. My friend Chris he has one of those little glass jars with the beaters in it that you crank.
Oh, sure.
He likes to make butter while he watches football.
That's awesome. Okay, and that's it, right? That technology hasn't changed.
Yeah. When you talk to Blaine about this, he will tell you that butters can be finicky. Sometimes it will refuse to break and you don't know why. We've had a few frantic conversations about what I might have possibly changed that would make the butter not break. And then all of a sudden it's gone and it's working perfectly again. And we think to ourselves, what happened? It is finicky.
Got it.
But most of the time, you just beat it, it breaks, you squeeze the buttermilk out, and you got butter.
And you got butter. And so buttermilk is another product that comes out of that?
Buttermilk is another product. Buttermilk that actually comes from making butter and is not the kind that you buy in the store, makes amazing, delicious bread. People put it in smoothies. That's great stuff.
High protein?
It still has protein in it.
Okay.
It has a lot of minerals. It has a very tangy taste to it.
So if I was to make buttermilk at home, I could take raw milk and I could add white vinegar or lemon juice to it.
Sure. And that would give you something more like what you get at the store.
Okay, got it. So there's a difference. So the
that
buttermilk
would give you that thicker product.
I see.
So buttermilk that you get from actually making butter is very thin.
Gotcha. Okay. But still used for baking. I mean, that's how we've done it.
Yeah,
right?
You could, pretty much in any recipe, you could just replace water with buttermilk.
Pretty much in any recipe. Okay, nice.
For baked goods, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Tell me about clabber milk. That feels like something that kind of lost its way for a bit, and people are starting to talk about it again in these circles that we're starting to travel in.
I I don't really know much about clabber milk.
Is
This
it?
feels like something that if you remind me, I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember
It'll
that.
click. That's right. Yeah. Okay. The way I understand it, milk sort of left out on the counter, and it kind of starts
okay.
curdling ish. It's not to the point where it could be potentially harmful.
Okay. Yeah.
But, okay. We'll come back to that. But then there's other things, right? So when we were making, cheese, and there's byproduct, there's skim, there's the whey. We have worked with your farm for the last couple of years with Blaine, where we get several 5-gallon buckets full of whey that we feed our pigs. Of course, they love it.
Yeah.
We add it to their regular meal, and it's almost like a porridge. And oh my gosh, they just think it's the greatest thing, right? I mean, that was what people did, is they took their Jersey cow, unless I'm wrong, and whatever byproduct left over of any kind of cream or cow dairy, a lot of times went to fed the other animals.
Yeah. Chickens love any dairy products you give them. I mean, chickens love almost anything, but they will lose their minds over skim milk or buttermilk or whey. We had for a while a chicken farmer who would come get some of our milk to finish his breast chickens on.
They
were delicious. He gave me one.
That was excellent.
It was worth it.
There you go. Wow, we should do that, because we'll raise 135 meat birds this year.
Yeah, you should talk to Blaine about our skim milk.
Yeah. Well, again, we get it from you already for the pigs.
Yeah.
We'll set some apart for those chickens.
Yeah, they would love the whey as well.
I like that. Okay, good to know. One of the other questions from the wife is, take us through the non-fat 1%, 2% whole milk. I don't think that I understand it. And let me give you a backstory.
Okay.
We grew, as a kid, it was 2% milk, because I grew up in the 80s.
Yeah.
And it was pushed in the 80s to drink lower fat milk.
Yep. Likewise, we had 2% milk in our house.
Okay. And then as I got into the 90s, it went to 1%. And then everybody was talking non-fat and milk. And the minute I poured some non-fat milk into my cereal or granola, I decided it wasn't worth it.
Milk you buy at the store is like kind of bluish, right? It doesn't really even look like milk anymore. Well,
tell me why and how.
Yeah. So, have you been in the creamery?
I have to pick up.
Yeah. Have you seen our milk separator?
I don't think so.
Okay. So we have a big old milk separator, which is basically a centrifuge that spins the fat off one direction and the milk off the other direction, because the fat is heavier, right? So once you've taken that fat off, you're left with skimmed milk, is what it is technically called. And you can spin all of the fat out. If you do that, then you have fat-free skim milk that you can get at the store.
Okay.
So Blaine, initially, there's a lot of trial and error in setting up a creamery. We've learned a lot along the way. And one of the first things that Blaine learned is that he had the separator cranked down too much. He was trying to get too much fat out of the milk, and it came out like almost already butter. And he was like, this is not working for me. So our skim milk actually does have a fair amount of fat left in it. So it's not blue. We haven't tested it because we're not selling it for human consumption at the moment, but it's probably more like 1% milk. But the difference is that whole milk is going to be Holstein breed average fat content, which is going to be just over 3% butter fat.
Okay.
So then if you take some of that out and bring it down to 2% butter fat, then that's 2% milk. If you take out more and you bring it down to 1%, then that's 1% milk.
As the milk comes out of the Holstein, how much butter fat is typically in that bucket?
Usually just over 3% of the milk volume is fat.
So you're taking out really not that much out of the raw product.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. So by contrast, my cows, components in milk, when we talk about components in milk, we're usually talking about fat and protein. And they vary over the season and over the cow's lactation and over diet changes. So if we get tested once a month, and it's always a little bit different, but my cows generally run around somewhere around 5% butter fat. And if you've been trying to breed up your butter fat in cows, you know that's a lot more than a Holstein. It doesn't sound like more if you're a lay person, but it's a lot more.
Going from 3 to 5 doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a big jump in reality.
It's a big jump. Yeah.
I gotcha.
So if you are selling your Jersey milk to a processor, they're going to process it as whole milk to sell. They are going to take some of that out to bring it down to 3%.
Got it.
To the average.
Using a centrifuge?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot simpler than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. Do you think there's any merit to it? If I drank non-fat milk, am I going to be skinnier?
Probably not. I mean, nutritional fads come and go, right? And like you said, in the 80s and 90s, there was a fat is bad message that went out. But the truth is that we actually need fat to process all of our other nutrients. If you don't have any fat in your diet, it doesn't matter how much else you eat, you will literally starve. So I would say moderation in all things. If you need to cut calories and that's the only way you can do it, sure, buy lower fat percentage milk. But if you don't like it and it doesn't make you satisfied and you end up drinking more, then maybe just buy the whole milk.
Yeah, I think that's part of it is the satisfying, because if you're constantly going to eat then the next meal or looking for a snack or whatever, and I notice a big difference, especially since we've harvested our own animals and so on, and the more whole fat type stuff that we consume, I am more satisfied than I was before.
Yeah.
Now my brain could be tricked if I was to eat processed foods a little bit, right? But if I'm eating any sort of low fat, and I like salads and vegetables, for example, but I don't get that satisfied with it.
I think that there is a difference in our satisfaction level in foods that are low fat because that's the way they came out of the ground or the animal, and low fat because we've tinkered with the fat content.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I don't have any proof of that. That's just how I feel.
You didn't learn that at WSU?
I didn't do we talked about food science a little bit, but that's an entirely different field of study.
Yeah, like if you want
to do a deep dive, go for it, but you don't have time in 4 years.
Got it.
to do
Got
both.
it. That's fair. Let's talk about raw milk for a minute. So, and if you don't want to speak to it, that's okay. But it's kind of controversial, right?
It is.
For example, I got to know some Amish folks, and they're big on the raw milk, and they don't want any government interference. And they'll trade and barter and drink it, and everybody seems to be okay. But in our state, they come in hard and heavy, or fast and whatever the word phrase is. What do you? I know that. Tell me about it. And again, you don't have to have an opinion about it. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
Oh, I have opinions.
Oh, okay. Well, then share them if you're willing to.
So full disclosure, I drink raw milk from my cows. Okay. I will go to the bulk tank and grab myself a glass of milk if I want one. But the difference between me drinking raw milk from my own cows and somebody else buying raw milk from a farm that they don't work the cows is that I am in close contact with those cows all the time. So not only do I know exactly how clean I did or did not get them before I milked them, I know what they've been exposed to. And also I've already been exposed to it because they literally throw everything they have at me. So there is a misconception that there are bacteria in milk that are beneficial. And you have to remember that in a perfect world, there would be absolutely no bacteria in milk. My goal is always to have as little bacteria as possible in the milk. So if I can get my somatic cells, so we measure somatic cells. So soma just means body. So a somatic cell is just a body cell. So it's not measuring it if it's it's not telling you if it's a white blood cell, or if it's a bacteria cell, it's just telling you there's cells in the milk. But in a perfect world, there are none. So we measure that. And if I can get it below 100 per, oh gosh, I can't remember what unit is right now. But if I can get it below 100, I'm thrilled. If it goes above 200, I'm upset about life. But it's never
You're
zero.
Not doing your job.
The lowest I have ever gotten it was like for an individual cow was like in maybe the 20s. So there's always something in there, right? And it's not something that the cow produced. It's something that got into the cow. And unless you culture it, you don't know what that is. A lot of times it's just environmental bacteria that's not super harmful. It's not harmful to the cow and it's not harmful to you. But I have also cultured samples on cows that had things like E. coli bacteria, which could be real bad, or Mycobacterium, also really bad. Listeria, terrible.
Right.
These are all things that could make people genuinely very, very ill. And I'm not so worried about E. coli because if your cow gets E. coli, you're going to be fighting to keep her alive. You're not going to be milking her.
Got it.
But for something else like listeria, I could miss the first signs of that and milk a cow that's shedding listeria into her milk maybe once or twice before I notice that my cow is sick. And if I drink that milk, I've probably already been exposed to it and I'll be fine. But if I sell it to somebody else who is not, that could be very bad. So I feel like if you want to milk your own cow and drink raw milk from your own cow, or if you want to like milk your neighbor's cow for them every once in a while and share milk, like that's totally fine. You're probably not going to get sick. But raw milk in the larger community is potentially very dangerous. And I don't think that our regulations are unreasonable.
Well said. No, I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, I have mixed views personally. I feel like I see both sides.
Yeah.
Whenever I make my own cheese, which again, I've made very little, but I've made a few things over the years, I prefer using raw milk.
Sure.
But I'm usually injecting some other bacteria, something to it.
So when you're making cheese, you're using a bacteria to make your cheese, and that's going to overrun ideally whatever is already in there.
Right. And there is a difference, I think, in taste and what you use.
There is for sure. In fact, we discovered that even aging raw milk cheese and pasteurized milk cheese made with the same recipe on the same day from the same milk, they kind of need to be in different rooms. Otherwise, they interact with each other differently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because they're living.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's a cool experiment. Probably happened by accident.
It definitely happened by accident. Like I said, there's a steep learning curve to building a creamery.
Wow. Same milk from the same cow, the same day, same recipe. One was pasteurized and one was raw.
Yeah.
And then they interacted with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
And then Blaine started putting them in separate rooms and they both turned out the way he wanted them to. They weren't the same, but they both turned out nicely. But in the same room that did not go as he planned.
Wow. That's amazing. Just a few more questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Grass-fed milk, we'll say, versus we'll call it the industry milk.
Sure.
Comment on that. What do you think? I feel like I can taste the difference a lot of times. This friend of ours that has, her cow, I've had it, and it's good, but I can taste grass in the milk.
Yeah.
I've bought grass-fed milk, grass-finished, cows, whatever, from the grocery store. I feel like in some cases I can taste the grass. It's not my favorite taste when I'm drinking dairy. That being said, what's your opinion as sort of the professional?
There's definitely going to be differences in the flavor profile. When you think you taste grass, you're tasting grass.
Sure.
That's for sure.
Is there health concerns?
No. For humans drinking it? No, no, I don't think so. I think it's entirely a personal preference. Like, I like our grass-fed milk, but I'm not super fond of, I like my grass-fed beef, like when we butcher our own cows, and I like the taste of that, but I'm not always fond of the taste of other people's grass-fed beef.
Sure.
And I think that's entirely a personal preference. Obviously, the cows enjoy going out on pasture, but you can have a healthy, happy cow feeding them lots and lots of ways.
So, okay, on the other side, not the grass-fed, but on the industry-style milk or other dairy products, I mean, there are a lot of times they're in a grain bunk or some sort of feed bunk, right?
Yeah, so when people say that it's grain-fed beef or grain-fed dairy, they don't mean that cow is only eating grain. They mean that they're getting grain with their diet, but their diet is still mostly forage. But usually on a commercial dairy farm, that forage is going to be corn. And on our farm, it's grass.
Got it. Around here, up 203 and 202, you see these remnants of old dairy farms. And you see these, and I didn't realize it, and some of them are still in operation. A lot of them are not. These, you mentioned the silage or the haylage or whatever, the corn, and they have these big pits.
Yeah.
Right. Tell me, the dairy barn is constructed a little differently than a typical barn.
It's very distinctive, right? You can drive along and say, that was an old dairy. I do this to my boyfriend. It drives him nuts. So I'm like, that used to be a dairy. That used to be a dairy.
Yeah.
So the silage pit that you're talking about is like a bunker, right? With concrete sides. And we have one. It has manure in it instead of corn silage because we don't grow corn. And we make our grass bales into haylage instead of silage.
We're going to come back to that. We're going to sort
We'll
out the
come back to
difference.
that, yeah.
Okay, keep going.
So when you're putting up corn silage or haylage, if you're fermenting something, you want to get as much air out as you possibly can, right? So they're putting corn that they've just harvested and chopped into that, and they're driving over it back and forth to pack it down really tight to get all that air out. And then they're going to cover it with a cover and weight that cover down, and it's going to ferment. And then when they're ready to feed it out, those corn stalks have been already partially fermented. And the miracle of ruminants, because basically all mammals use 3 types of digestion, but we don't do them in the same order. So humans do mechanical, chemical, and then bacterial digestion, right? Cows do mechanical and then bacterial and then mechanical again and then bacterial again. And then they do chemical digestion after they're done with that, right?
Because the ruminant stomach deal.
They have that big rumen, which is basically a fermenting vat, which is where all their microbiome is. So those fermented grass stalks, because corn is a giant grass, those partially fermented stalks, there gives access to the bacteria in their rumen to get in there and extract nutrients that they couldn't otherwise get, that the lignin that's in tough plants would be blocking. They couldn't get past it. But if you start to ferment it, that gives access to it. So that means that they can get more nutrition out of it than if it was just fresh. And obviously it saves all winter. So that's basically what's happening with corn silage.
Wow.
And also with our grass haylage.
So when you see in the Snoqualmie Valley, there's a lot of old pastures. In fact, an old golf course I used to play on, Tall Chief, when I was in college, because it was the only place I could afford to play, is now essentially a dairy pasture, or excuse me, corn specifically grown for dairy cows pasture.
Yeah, so that's field corn and not sweet corn.
Right. That's not the corn on the cob that we want on with our barbecue in August. This is something that is bred or grown specifically for cows.
Yeah.
But then it's put into that process you were just talking about where it was compacted.
It's compacted and covered,
fermented.
and then it goes through an anaerobic digestion process where it starts to ferment.
So that doesn't sound bad.
It has a very distinctive smell that I really like, but other people hate.
But that doesn't sound like a bad thing.
No, it's just a way to...
So there's some bad press, though, about cows that eat corn.
Sure.
So we're missing something here, or they're not eating the corn you're describing.
No, they are eating the corn I'm describing. I think that monocultures are potentially harmful to the environment just because there's not enough biodiversity, right?
Right.
So I think that is really the only problem with corn, is that we maybe need to look at how it's grown and maybe find ways to get a little bit more diversity in there. But feeding corn to cattle is not a bad thing. As long as you're balancing their diet, they're not only getting corn, there's other stuff going into their diet as well. I'm really glad we asked that question and you addressed it. You mentioned haylage and silage. There's a difference. Yeah. So silage is chopped and put up immediately, and it has the highest moisture content. Haylage is cut and then generally baled. If you see the big marshmallow bales around everywhere, those are haylage bales. So it's baled when it's not completely fresh. It maybe sits for a little bit, but it's still very wet. So it has kind of a medium moisture range, but there's enough moisture in there that it will start to ferment. And then hay is dried and then baled. So typically those haylage marshmallows, that's an orchard grass style from Western Washington. But in the Eastern Washington grows these big, beautiful dry bales. Mm-hmm. Is that true? And there's usually different protein content, I imagine. We can grow all manner of things over here, but if you have a field that you just let pop up whatever popped up, like I do, and I have a very low field, as I said, it floods. So we have a lot of reed canary grass, which is technically an invasive species, but what are you going to do? It's all that grows in my field. So reed canary grass benefits from being used as haylage instead of hay because it is also a giant grass that has a very tough stem, and it has... So it needs to break down in that container, essentially. It needs to break down, or it really has very little feed value. Interesting. And as a second cutting, it does very well. If you can get it when it's younger. Also, you don't want to handle it the same way you handle normal grasses. I had a learning curve getting used to it. But once you're used to managing it a little bit different than you would manage normal pasture grass. The cows do great and they love it. But you need to take that first cutting off so that you can get the really good second cutting. But in my situation, the fields are so wet for so long that it's already 7 feet tall by that point. So the first cutting it's just going to be filler feed.
Sure. Don't waste it.
We're
but
taking
it's
it
not,
off because we want the second cutting.
Sure. And they can eat as much as they want, probably. And we're just going to not waste it. But you're really trying to get to the next growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, it's funny because we buy, we don't have enough pasture here. And so we have to bring in hay. And the cows, they get picky.
They have distinct preferences.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, certainly they're hoping that I'm bringing them really good alfalfa from Eastern Washington all the time.
Yeah, but you're not.
But I'm not. Exactly. Yeah, we've got some of the orchard grass. We've done the canary. Heck, I think one year we added some spent grains from a local brewery.
I tried that. My trouble was that I couldn't find a way to store it and then use it all up before it started to spoil.
Of course.
It was either like I go get it every day or the last little bit spoiled. And I was like, well, that feels bad to waste it.
Yeah, no, I don't know that we saw a difference. They seem to like it okay. The pigs also
didn't really like it that much. They ate it, but they weren't super excited about it.
Yeah, same. And then our pigs even, which I fully expected to devour it, they left a little bit more behind than I thought as well, which I was kind of surprised. I think it's because we were spoiling them with the skim from Cherry Valley Dairy.
Maybe you needed to pour the skim over the brewer's grains.
Probably. It's amazing, though, to that point. I know you're a dairy farmer, essentially. But when I saw the difference on the inside of the animal on that one bad day that they had, and I saw two different pigs, one was raised a certain way with really healthy food and all that sort of thing, and the other one was just glean from like bakeries and Costco and places like that, where the pigs just ate baguettes and croissants, and the difference in the meat was dramatic.
Yeah.
It was actually really unappetizing or unappealing to look at and even touch, sort of the flesh, if you want to call it that, from the pig that just had all that glean. Did the pigs eat it? Yes. But did it turn out to be a big, beautiful protein? No.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I have a lot of reed canary grass, but we also have native ryegrass and we have some clover, and they will ideally, when you are using a rotational grazing system, your animals are there for 12 hours and they get one bite and they move on. But anybody who's actually tried a rotational grazing system knows that it is simple in practice and it is complicated. It's simple in theory, it's complicated in practice. So they are not always moved on every 12 hours, and they will go and they'll get their favorite bite the first day. And then the next day they come back to the same pasture and all their favorite stuff is gone. So then they have to eat something else. And Blaine will say, the milk tastes different today.
So it's probably in that case, you want to let them stay a little bit longer. So is that true? And then instead of the 12 hours, or are you saying you really? I'm always subdividing my fields and trying to get closer to they take one bite and move on scenario. And I do have some fields where they graze one day and I move them on, but I have quite a few like 2-day fields and a few 3 or 4 day fields. It's tough.
But it also depends on the time of year. Sometimes some parts of the year they're like 4-day fields, and then in July they're 1-day fields.
There's a lot of people out there that are doing really good work with pasture regeneration. That's something that we care about here as well. It's difficult with the weather and the size of the paddock. We also, us in particular, are on sort of this glacial till, and so you don't go very far down, and you're at rocks.
Yeah.
The pasture bounce back, it doesn't happen that quickly. I've seen your fields; they're beautiful, but again,
we're very honestly, we're lucky to have the bottomland that floods. It's a pain at the shoulder ends of the year when I would like to have my cows out earlier and keep them out later, but I'm getting everybody else's topsoil. I feel a little guilty about it.
Yeah, it comes rolling in on the floodplain.
Yeah.
Hopefully with not very many aluminum cans and other things too.
We have found so much stuff in the pasture after flood season.
Yeah, this family friends of ours that live, I was telling you about earlier, yeah, when their flood, the Snoqualmie River goes up, they get all kinds of fun things that land and then stay.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Well, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you taking time. Anne-Marie, where can people find out more information about the work that you're doing at Cherry Valley Dairy, and how can people find the end product, all this hard work that you put in, and you get this delicious butter and all these cheeses and other things? How can people get more information about it?
Yeah, so the easiest way would just be to go to our website, which is cherryvalleydairy.com. If you are interested in talking to Blaine or I, you can email us at cherryvalleycheese@gmail.com. If you want to talk, that goes to Blaine. So if you want to talk specifically to me about cows, you got to tell him you want to talk about cows, or he'll not pass it on, because how would he know?
Got it.
I do give farm tours sometimes. So if you want to organize one of those, you can reach out to me. Yeah. COVID kind of put a dent in my visitors, and they haven't bounced back, but I did do a lot of farm tours at one point in time.
That's great. Yeah. So if people, Cub Scout groups, whoever, right? You schedule it with you, probably via email or a phone call or something like that. And they can come out and you could work something out for them.
Yeah.
And what about the end product? Can you buy it there at the dairy, or how's that part work?
You can email us an order, and Blaine will let you know when it's filled, and you can just come pick it up at the farm.
Like a will call.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you can also find us at Family Grocer in Duval, and I believe we have a list of other places that we sell on our website. If we don't, then we need to update it.
But you will sell directly to the retail customer too.
We do sell directly, yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, very much, very good. Anne-Marie, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, that wraps up another episode of Irish Mike's Farm Table Podcast. Thank you for supporting me. Don't forget to subscribe and rate on your favorite platform. I would love it if you gave me a 5-star rating. If you like what you hear, also feel free to share with a friend. Make sure you head over to lakejoyfarmstead.com to find out more information about all the things we are doing around our farm. You can also find the show notes to this and each episode on the podcast tab on the website. Thank you for sharing in the conversation around the farm table.